Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. Larry Johnson will be here with us in just a minute on just how has President Trump helped BRICS and helped the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. But first, this. While the markets are giving us whiplash, have you seen the price of gold? It's soaring. In the past 12 months, gold has risen to more than $3,000 an ounce. I'm so glad I bought my gold. It's not too late for you to buy yours. The same experts that predicted gold at $3,200 an ounce now predict gold at $4,500 or more in the next year. What's driving the price higher? Paper currencies. All around the world, they are falling in value. Big money is in panic as falling currencies shrink the value of their paper wealth. That's why big banks and billionaires are buying gold in record amounts. As long as paper money keeps falling, they'll keep buying, and gold will keep rising. So do what I did. Call my friends at Lear Capital. You'll have a great conversation, and they'll send you very helpful information. Learn how you can store gold in your IRA tax and penalty free or have it sent directly to your doorstep. There's zero pressure to buy and you have a 100% risk-free purchase guarantee. It's time to see if gold is right for you. Call 800-511-4620, 800-511-4620 or go to LearJudgeNap.com and tell them your friend the judge sent you. Larry Johnson, welcome here, my dear friend. Before we get to your great work on your Sonar 21, your analyses of the president helping BRICS and helping the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and manifesting in ignorance of Economics 101, before we get there, I want to ask you a few questions about Ukraine. Do you think that the elites in Ukraine, the diplomats, the generals, the senior government officials, even the ultra-nationalists know that their days are numbered and that the war can't go on much longer and Russia will soon triumph and achieve its military objectives?
I think there are a few. Unfortunately, it's not the overwhelming majority. When we saw last week that the Ukrainians let the 18 to 21-year-olds leave the country, I interpreted that as that they were at least starting to acknowledge that the end game is afoot, and they wanted to get the sort of the future of Ukraine out of harm's way. That was perhaps one of the considerations. But this is like a repeat of history. When you go back and look at the end of World War II with respect to Germany, it was clear 8 months before that Germany was defeated, but they didn't stop. And so all they succeeded in doing was getting more Germans killed, and in that case, more Russian troops killed as well. But the end game is here. It's just a matter of how quickly it's going to unfold.
Alistair Crook is of the view that the ultra-nationalists are so, we sometimes call them Banderas, we sometimes call them neo-Nazis. The mentality of the people of whom I speak are so powerful, so ideologically driven that the rest of the elites are fearful to state the truth for fear of personal repercussions against them. Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. This emergence of, we call it the neo-Nazis, whether it was the Azov Battalion, right sector, they embraced an ideology that touted themselves as a part of the Aryan race, a superior race, and portrayed the Russians as inferior, as Slavs, and within that they'd also include Jews, except they brought in Volodymyr Zelensky, a Jew, to head up their government. So there's not exactly intellectual consistency with these folks, but they are vicious. I remember seeing videos going back 4 years ago where they would come upon people that they considered undesirables on the street and just beat them senseless. And, the police would stand by and watch it and do nothing. So, yeah, the physical intimidation factor is at work here.
Do you think that these ultra nationalists are rubbing their hands and ready to take over the government of what remains of Ukraine? I mean, that would,
yeah, not really.
It's not going to please Moscow.
Yeah, no, I think their game is to try to keep the money flowing as long as possible, because they are enriching themselves in the process. But there's going to Russia has clearly changed its modus operandi now. I mean, they've embarked on a new tactical approach with the hitting of these key factories. They're going after key logistics centers. And, that last week they launched a missile that landed very close. It was a precise hit on a military target, but it was close to the British embassy or British consulate. And just sending a message that if Britain, France, and Germany continue to try to, reinforce the war and keep it going, that they themselves could become targets.
Were you, switching gears, were you surprised that the State Department denied visas to all Palestinian officials, preventing them from attending, I don't know how they can get away with this, preventing them from attending the UN General Assembly here in New York in October?
Well, it's not just Palestinian officials. Anybody that's carrying a Palestinian passport is now banned from coming to the United States. So this is shameful. This further solidifies America's guilt as an enabler of genocide. This is reminiscent of the kind of thing that was actually done to Jews in the lead up to World War II, preventing them from entering certain countries. So so now the United States is following in the long tradition of this kind of facilitation of genocide. I mean, let's be honest. We did it to the Native Americans in this country.
Right.
And now it's turning, you're saying, okay, we can do it to these Palestinians because they're subhuman. They're not real people.
Chris, put up the B-roll that you have. This is the send-off of an armada of 50 ships, which includes a lot of Americans and a lot of Western media, bringing medicine and food to Gaza. Colonel McGregor has argued that in a real world, in a healthy world, these people would be protected by the United States Navy, but don't expect it to happen to these people.
No, the Navy's too tied up off the coast of Venezuela. I mean, we got
right, nicely put.
Yeah. No, we can't. We can't be concerned with protecting people because we're now going to be the War Department. We're going to go to war with people in hopes of getting my Nobel Peace Prize, says Donald Trump. Sorry, I just this is getting more. This is like a Monty Python skit on some sort of hallucinogenic drugs. Just the contradictory messages that Trump is sending. But again, this flotilla to try to bring actual relief to the people of Palestine, it's going to be stopped by the Israeli Navy, and they may even kill a few of them. But we're waiting for the other countries in the world to shut down trade, economic commerce with Israel across the board. And I put on that the BRICS countries. They too could do something, and they're not doing anything.
How important to U.S. markets are imports to the U.S. from India?
Yeah. So if you heard Trump yesterday, oh man, this India boy, we're such an important market for them. And I said, really? I'm trying to think of all the Indian imports that I've ever had to consider buying. And so I looked it up. Roughly about 2.7% of Indian GDP. It's $131 billion of trade, which, it sounds like a lot of money, except the Indian economy is 4 trillion in size. So in other words, 131 billion is sort of a rounding error. It's not essential. It's not critical compared to, the import of Russian oil, diesel, gas, or at least the oil that's imported is converted in India into diesel and gasoline. And the diesel runs the trucking industry in India. So, what India is sitting and looking at is realizing, if they got cut off from that cheap supply, the inexpensive supply of oil from Russia, it would be very damaging to their economy. Now, they can find other markets where the items that they're currently trading with the United States, they can go elsewhere. They can make that up. Maybe not 100%, but it's not going to hurt them financially. And here's Donald Trump. He apparently believes it. So either he's just flat out ignorant, ignoring what he's being told, or his aides, his assistants, they're lying to him. They're not giving him the truth. It took me 5 minutes, 10 minutes to figure this out. It took a little longer to write it up. But, you would think that people at this policymaking level would say, okay, we have the leverage. For example, with Mexico and Canada, like in Canada's case, if we cut off trade with Canada, that would hit a quarter, 25% of their gross domestic product. That it would see serious damage. In Mexico, it's an even higher number. So
we're just stop here. We're looking at President Xi, Prime Minister Modi, and President Putin as best buddies, and they're in Shanghai literally as we speak. This isn't live, but it's just a few minutes old.
Yeah, well, that's actually from yesterday, but you notice they're all laughing. Now, this is where it gets great. Firstly, a lot of memes have come out. So one of them said, man, can you believe how dumb Trump was to impose those tariffs? And they're laughing it up. The other one was, they're laughing saying, can you believe that Macron's married to a dude? So it's just, but here they are, the China and India, the largest countries in terms of population in the world, with Putin, who has the fourth largest economy. So there are three of the four largest economies in the world right there. And they are not yelling at each other. They're not poking each other in the chest with a finger. They're laughing, they're smiling, and they recognize we got to cooperate. And this is what was so powerful about this Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
How has Trump's ignorance of Economics 101 helped substantiate, solidify BRICS? There's President Pezeshkian of Iran right there.
Correct.
How has it helped solidify the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and solidify BRICS? Trump's rants and raves and rails against BRICS, I believe he's helping them out.
Oh, yeah. No, this has, 2 years ago, you could sit around and say that BRICS was still a nice idea, but in terms of execution, in terms of becoming really something that affected how trade and payments for goods that are traded were made, you'd say they were still a ways off. What has happened, both as a result of Joe Biden's policies, but now under Donald Trump, particularly with the tariffs, what's fascinating is when you look at the countries that have dependence on the United States for trade, none of them are BRICS countries. None. The countries that are dependent on the United States for trade are, really, they're not consequential nations. So once you step back and realize now that the BRICS countries and the distinguish between the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and BRICS, Shanghai Cooperation is basically China and Russia, along with the former republics of the Soviet Union, like Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Belarus, Kazakhstan. those are part of the SCO, and it was more for initially for a security arrangement in that part of the world. But now it's expanding, and the SCO part with my left hand and the BRICS part, they are starting to merge and meld and come together. Because you notice at this conference, other countries were invited, including Iran, as you pointed out, with Pezeshkian standing there, Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan.
I'm pretty sure I saw President Lula of Brazil there.
No, Lula didn't make this one. He was unable to get there. I think the ambassador for Brazil was sent.
Okay, I saw the Brazilian flag and a gray-haired man, and I assumed that it was Lula. But Brazil was represented.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what we're seeing now with BRICS, and one of the things that she announced is the establishment of a development bank. So a place where people can go get loans to do infrastructure projects in their countries. They no longer have to go hat in hand to beg the United States or IMF or World Bank for money. No. Now they're going to go to something where the U.S. has no control and no veto. The other thing they're really looking at is that the entire, what they call the Atlantic European power structure that has been the sort of the centerpiece of international affairs since the end of World War II. And by that, we mean at the United Nations, along with the United States, that England or the United Kingdom and France get a veto over UN Security Council decisions. Those two countries are no longer relevant. They shouldn't even have a seat at the table. They should get an occasional, representation as their turn comes up, but they shouldn't be in a place they can veto anything. By contrast, India, with 1.5 billion people, and the third largest economy or second largest economy in the world. So, yeah, they should be at the table.
Right. You have addressed the UN Security Council. Are the members treated equally, or do the 5 permanent members lord it over the others?
Yeah, they tend to lord it over the others, or at least some do. The French representative was particularly obnoxious and disdainful of everybody else. Lived down to every French stereotype, every negative French stereotype you've ever heard of. So,
tell me a little bit more about BRICS. Do they need SWIFT anymore? Do they need the Western bank clearing system?
No.
Do they need to trade in dollars anymore? I mean, if the answer to both questions is no, and I think it is, you can explain in a minute. These are devastating blows to what Trump has been claiming he's going to establish, which is U.S. financial hegemony.
Yeah, when we start talking about international financial transactions, people's eyes tend to glaze over. So let's, we'll just make it simple. It's like, okay, you've got a Harley Davidson motorcycle. You no longer want to ride it. And I want to buy it. So the way we do it in the States is I wire you money, send you money through Zelle. I send you a check, or I send you cash. Okay. So Brazil and China now wants to buy all of Brazil's coffee beans. Now, in the past, when China wanted to do that, they'd have to go to a bank and tell their bank, okay, go out and buy, let's say it's going to be $4 million for the coffee beans. They'd have to go out and convert the Chinese currency
2-day summit in the Chinese port
into dollars. And so those dollars would be purchased, and then that money would be wired usually. And when it was wired, it was sent bank to bank, and the one bank sends another bank an email. That was SWIFT. SWIFT is simply an email system. And, the Bank of China would say to the Bank of Brazil, yes, we're sending you $4 million US. It's coming out of this account. It's going into this account at your bank, and it's on such and such date. Now, all that information. That was old. Now what's happening is China and Brazil are exchanging their currencies direct. They're not having to go buy dollars. Now, this is a subtle change. It's not a dramatic break yet, but what it means is that the demand for U.S. dollars is sort of the lubricant for international trade. That's going away. And so you've now got China and Brazil doing that. You got India and Russia doing that. You've got India and Brazil doing. So they're all now starting to trade in each other's currencies. They're no longer having to go out and seek money on the U.S. dollars in the international financial market, and they're certainly not using SWIFT anymore.
How does the removal of U.S. dollars from these massive international trades harm the U.S. economy or the U.S. dollar?
So when you've got a big supply of dollars and low demand for it, the price goes down. So there, it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, we've got if the U.S. dollar is at a low price, that means anybody that's producing something in the United States is sold overseas. Means your product's much cheaper for the foreigner to buy, so they'll buy more of it, which may actually help your industry. So let's look California wines right now. I bet you Europeans are buying those things up right and left. Or some of the other countries with the inexpensive dollar. On the other hand, if we're having to buy anything from overseas, that means that price is going up. It's getting more expensive. So this lower, weaker dollar can actually fuel inflation and kick it off at quite a high rate. In the worst cases, we saw it in the Weimar Republic in the 1920s. I saw it firsthand in Argentina in 1984. Where you got so much currency circulating, not enough demand for that. The demand was for dollars, that inflation kicked off in Argentina back then. It was 1,000% annual inflation.
Wow.
Just unbelievable.
Wow. Larry, thank you very much. I appreciate you letting me take you to these economic areas, but I encourage everybody to read Sonar 21. Because Larry does a lot of research and he reproduces the results of the research late at night, East Coast time, and it's always there for you first thing in the morning, which is when I see it. Thank you, Larry. We'll see you Friday with McGovern, as long as he's not in jail. I'm only kidding. He had a little run-in with a U.S. senator, but they ended up shaking hands.
that rabble rouser, Ray.
You gotta love him. Thank you, Larry. All the best, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Judge.
Thank you. And coming up at 1:30 this afternoon, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, and at 3 o'clock, Scott Ritter, Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.